Would you be able to give us insight into what's happening inside the White House where worship and prayer is occurring on a regular basis and with whom?
I think the people that are there now think it beats people having sex in the chambers together like they were under the last administration, or leaving bags of cocaine around. They thought maybe we'll switch it up and have some praise and worship and prayer. Without spiritual change, you can take money and put 15 billboards up on the interstate. Domestic violence hurts everyone. That is not going to make one man stop hitting his wife or his children. If a man, that's evil. I would have quit a long time ago if I thought, you know what, this isn't really helping anybody. And then I would have got into just regular secular charity work.
Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth has been so kind as to make time for us today for a conversation about what's going on in Washington, what is going on in culture, and how he is able to be a bi-coastal, if not 3-time zone pastor in this crazy busy world we live in. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great meeting you.
I first saw you on X. I think I followed you sometime last year because you were just expressing yourself a lot on that. One day you posted something about revival or worship and prayer happening at the White House nearly every day. And I thought, where? How? Why? So I think we should just catch everybody up on first who you are and how you got to be in the position you are today, which is leading a church named Revival today. You preach in LA on Saturday.
Yes.
You leave that building and you get on a plane and you travel to, I believe it's Fort Worth first, right?
I did Fort Worth the first. I'll do Fort Worth one Sunday a month, and then I do Pittsburgh 3 Sundays a month. So like last week, I flew from LA to Pittsburgh, landed 6:45, churches at 8, and then I sleep on the plane and then change.
Why would you start a bi-coastal ministry, or really you're in 3 time zones, Fort Worth, and then not just be on screens everywhere you couldn't be? I mean, why was it important for you, and how did you get inspired to do that?
It is a calling. You know, I would have never pastored any churches. I would have guaranteed you 5 years ago I would never pastor a church. I just like traveling and preaching. But then I felt the Lord speak to me to start one here. Then I was preaching in Fort Worth. And when I finished one of the meetings, I felt the same thing. And I had no idea how to do 2. And then a guy gave me a plane after I announced I was going to do the second church. And so a guy heard it and said, gave me a plane, which made it possible.
He gave you a plane?
Yeah, a jet, Falcon 50. So, and then I was preaching in LA and felt the same thing. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. And then praying about it, God gave me clarity. And I do it on screen, some in Texas, but I felt California needed somebody in person. And Southern California has been through a lot, as you know, with the fires. It was locked down heavy during COVID. 30% of churches in LA closed, never to reopen again. So you have a lot of believers that have no place. You know, any church that was meeting at a school, they weren't allowed to meet for 3 years. And so they're done. And so there's a lot of need spiritually and otherwise in Southern California. And the more I travel, and I'm sure you feel this way doing media, it makes you love America and Americans, because you watch the news and they show you like 3 lowlights every night. But when you travel, people are great. Like people are worth helping. The more I meet people, the more I want to do more to introduce them to God and His Word and His power.
You're clearly passionate. You're married. You've got kids.
I have 1 daughter. She just turned 12.
Oh, that's an awesome age. Does she know what she wants to be when she grows up yet?
I mean, I didn't push her any more than my dad pushed me, but she's in school, but like summer she travels with me. She went on air with me last night. She likes this.
It's so easy for people to say, I received a word from the Lord. The Lord told me. But for people, like you said, not everybody's going to get that. So when you say that, did you hear the audible voice of God? Did you hear a still small voice? Was it like your conscience? I always like to break this down because I think people are fascinated, but also perplexed by it.
All right. Well, if you're going to bring it up, I'll give you the full answer. When I was 8, that first one I told you about, I saw an angel in my room. It's the last one I've ever seen. But I had a speech impediment. I had to miss recess twice a week to get speech therapy. I had 8 sounds I couldn't say right. They had already told my parents, like, there's plenty of jobs he can work where he won't have to speak. It's not a big deal. And after I saw that angel, I got healed. And that's not common for me. That was the last one I saw. And then the rest of the stuff I talked about, the way God leads most is by the inward witness of the Holy Spirit, which I think any viewer listening or watching, even if you're not a church person or a Christian, you know what it feels like to have a gut feeling or intuition. Well, that's your spirit that can pick up something bad or pick up something good. And I think, as you train yourself to follow the leading of God's Spirit, he never leads you wrong or backwards or into trouble. He leads you out of trouble.
Yeah, I just was talking to an atheist and told them that exact thing. Because you meet all kinds of people, all walks of life. I said, you are programmed to hear the voice of God, to know his voice because you have a conscience.
Yes.
And that feeling of, I should be here, I shouldn't date that person, I need to get out of here, comes on everybody.
Yes.
It's not hard to understand.
No, man is a spirit being. You don't have to have a special encounter of any kind. You're made a spirit being, and you have a body, but on the inside, like you said, you talk to even an atheist. They have stuff like, I had a gut feeling not to get on that flight or whatever. What is that? Because your brain's not in your stomach. So what's in there?
Yeah, and it's so accepted, I think, more than people realize. I would say more than a lot of companies realize, that all across the spectrum of belief or all across the spectrum of spirituality, people are tuning in a different way. Are you noticing that people are hungering for more understanding of supernatural phenomena or for understanding of God or heaven or destiny in a spiritual sense?
I can barely turn on a sporting event or a comedian's podcast without hearing people explicitly asking that they want to know about the Bible and Jesus Christ. My mother got saved in the 70s. They had what was called the Jesus movement, where hippies all just started driving to church, not knowing why they were, and giving their lives to the Lord. My mom came to Christ. She didn't grow up in a Christian family. That's how she came to Christ. I see that exact same thing happening right now. I mean, the United States record for most baptisms ever done at once was held not in the 1700s or 1800s. It was last year in Southern California. 12,000 people baptized at once. And now universities, I think the University of Alabama's had 2,000 students baptized in their fountain. There is a move of God taking place heavily right now that's touching every sector of America.
It's news making, and I believe that there are going to be industries and networks that are going to start seeing that they can't ignore these stories, or they need to give more airtime to them. I want to talk a little bit about Washington, D.C., because you've been in the White House. I touched on it briefly. You go into these spaces, you're traveling, you've been connected. There are a group of pastors who've been invited in, or I guess all faith leaders have been invited into this administration.
Everyone's welcome. It's a national faith office. It's not the National Office of Christianity. And I don't run it or have any leadership position, but I have been invited February and then here in March. And it's open to everybody. Rabbis come, priests come. Everyone of all faiths are welcome to come, but I think people, because it was opened up under Trump, obviously if they have strong feelings against Trump, which you may know that a few people do, they connect it so much that they don't want to be a part of it. But it's a national faith office so that people can freely practice their faith in God without having to go to court or go to jail for praying in public, or like happened with that coach that he had to go all the way to the Supreme Court about losing his job for praying in public. They don't want that to happen anymore. So that's what it's about.
I believe that's Coach Joe Kennedy and his life story. He made a book and then a movie. But there was an interesting post you made on X that I saw, and it was about worship and prayer happening in the White House on a regular basis. Now, I don't think most people, I don't think most journalists, I don't think most corporate folks, I don't think most tastemakers and influencers are aware of what's happening. So would you happen to know, would you be able to give us insight into what's happening inside the White House where worship and prayer is occurring on a regular basis, and with whom?
Well, when I was there, I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm sure some people would not like it, but I have never gone to events like that. Even if I've been invited, I don't like them. Like the National Prayer Breakfast, it's heavy on breakfast, light on prayer. So I was wondering if this was going to be the kind of thing where everybody just sits around and gives their ideas, but it wasn't. We sang How Great Thou Art. There was a keyboard player and a soloist, and everybody lifted their hands and worshiped. And it was great. And then there was prayer, like real prayer for the country, for the citizens of America. And I feel like that's something, obviously everybody can't get behind it, but everybody should get behind it because we need God's help to solve government can't solve the problems in America through bureaucracy or legislation. You can punish people for murder. Only God can take the desire to murder out of somebody's heart. You can encourage people to pay child support and raise their families, but only God can put a love in somebody to not abandon their family and to do what's right. So that was really prayed, and it was a spiritual time, and it was excellent.
And when you're saying that, these are all kinds of faith leaders coming together, some of them didn't know each other. It's not like this special club.
No.
You meet people from all across the country, right? And they're all gathered.
No, I barely knew anybody that was there. I knew maybe if there were 60 people at the last meeting, I might have known 11, 8 in there. It isn't some kind of like closed group Illuminati type thing where all the leaders of the faith. I know people think that. I've seen it on HBO and stuff that there's meetings, but the truth is, as you know, most ministers don't get along with each other. So it was for that reason, it was great to see like so many different people, rabbis, Baptist, Catholic, full gospel, whatever, all praying and coming under the common good. We want to see America helped, not hurt.
Well, you brought up something that I think is interesting, but I don't want to go there until I just finish this part. So if you could just tell people who are voters, who are watching now, different denominations or maybe agnostic, this new office that the administration created for faith, is the purpose to have basically church in the White House? Is the purpose to allow people to see that there's another side of life and that this is a benefit, not a curse, to have people who are praying for the country? What's the intention? I understand fighting for the rights of people, religious freedoms, but what's the intention behind actually having like music and prayer unto God in the White House?
I think the people that are there now think it beats people having sex in the chambers together like they were under the last administration or leaving bags of cocaine around. They thought maybe we'll switch it up and have some praise and worship and pray.
And we still don't have the answer to the cocaine. But I think, and remind me, I think we talked about this briefly on the phone. I just peeled back the curtain and say, so we were talking on the phone and you said something about like, to a lot of spiritual people, to a lot of people of faith, when you pray, it's like you clean the atmosphere. It's like you sweep the air, so to speak, which I think people of many different religious or spiritual beliefs understand.
Yeah, sage, that's interesting. Like we're talking, a lot of these things are universal concepts. There's all kinds of practices where they'll clear the air with sage or to get evil spirits out. Well, they wanted, and President Trump, his dad took him to church when he was little. I know people think the evangelicals think he's the Messiah or whatever. He likes church. He likes gospel music. And so rather than have the kind of filthy stuff, and I'm not saying Biden condoned it or anything, but that stuff was going on and it was censured by both parties. So they thought, let's kind of clean it up and maybe sing some hymns instead of have sex and cocaine.
Are they going to continue this? Is this a weekly occurrence or a monthly or daily? Do you know how often?
Paula White's in charge of the National Faith Office, and she wants to bring in as many faith leaders as possible. So I don't know that it's daily, because I'm sure she takes a day off. Maybe she doesn't, but I mean, there were a lot of faith leaders in the day before I was there, and there were a lot in the day after I was there. So she's bringing a steady stream, and she wants as many voices to be represented as possible. What are you going through as a daycare worker or somebody that's trying to provide alternatives to women that are pregnant that don't want to have an abortion? And what legal challenges are you facing? And then when she has them gathered there, they pray. And President Trump has said, he appreciates that people are praying for him. He likes Paula White. They've known each other for over 20 years. She was praying for him before he was in politics, and he kept her as like a spiritual advisor. And he wants that. For whatever reason. Some people don't want anything to do with prayer, and that's kind of like you guys stay and do your thing. He likes that people are praying for him, and he likes that those songs are being sung. So, and if you study it, it's been done before. I know. You might know better than me. I think one of the Marine bands used to lead praise and worship in Congress, and they would have service on Sunday. So they're just kind of bringing back what used to happen.
Well, and I heard, and I never was able to get anybody to get on the record about it, but there were members of Congress who were quietly or secretly fasting together during the Ukraine war, and then when Israel experienced October 7th. And so they were going through like times of essentially congressional prayer and fasting, several members. So it's not unheard of. But one of my favorite stories in history is George Washington. He was inaugurated not in Washington, D.C., because Washington, D.C. didn't exist yet. He was inaugurated in New York City. And the little church in New York City that's right by the World Trade Towers, or what was the World Trade Towers, now the 9/11 Memorial, was one of the only structures not hit after that devastating terrorist attack.
Wow.
And he went to church the day he was inaugurated. He carried his family Bible and he went to church service. And so it's like, this is not unheard of in the history of America.
And the idea that you're going to have a secular state, it doesn't exist. People are, like we talked about in the beginning, people are spiritual. People want, and I'm telling you, world leaders worldwide, they want to know the future. It helps you make decisions. So they're going to try to get some spiritual help. Almost, you're rarely going to meet somebody that doesn't in any way dabble in anything spiritually. So,
regarding what you said earlier, when you said that if you're a murderer, the only thing that can take murder out of your heart is God, essentially is what you said. And the thing is that so many corporations want to do good in the world. So many media entities, so many technology companies, they're craving and they're impassioned to benefit humanity. And yet just putting money on an issue, as we've seen even in the last several years, doesn't help. In fact, it just creates greed and corruption. So
yes,
what could corporate America or all of the different multiple industries learn from the faith community, where it's not about getting into another debate about separation of church and state, but it's really about, we all face the same issues. We all face the same problems. Where can we innovate together?
Well, what you said is the absolute truth. And an interesting study, because you have people ask this all the time. Why don't they tax churches? Why don't they tax churches? It's not like it's a question that doesn't have an answer. Read why they wrote the IRS code the way they did. The government made the decision that churches are doing more good for the community than the money we would get from them in taxes. So we actually want to encourage there to be more of them, because what you alluded to is true. Without spiritual change, you can take money and put 15 billboards up on the interstate. Domestic violence hurts everyone. That is not going to make one man stop hitting his wife or his children. If a man, that's evil. That's an evil that's in people's heart. You're not going to read a billboard and go, yeah, you know what? Or a public service announcement or a commercial and say, you know what? That's true. I should stop doing that. People have a heart that needs change. And that's what the power of God does. The Bible says, I'll take out your old heart and give you a heart of flesh, a soft heart. So, I've been in the ministry a little over 20 years now. I would have quit a long time ago if I thought, you know what, this isn't really helping anybody. And then I would have got into just regular secular charity work. But what you find is the opposite. People have an encounter with God, and they go from the most wicked person you'd ever meet to, like, you can't tell it's the same person that has, not only are they not doing wrong things anymore, they have a desire to bless people, and only God can do that.
Wow. You said that so well and so succinctly, and I hope everyone's listening, because the truth of the matter is that what you just said is what we all want. We want true transformational change. We want true restoration. And even those who don't know God can understand that it's going to be a heart matter. If you lie to yourself, you're going to lie to everybody else.
That's right.
Once you stop lying to yourself, you can be truly honest and be truly authentic. And that internal change is what we need to start partnering with multiple different kinds of entities across the spectrum of business and media and start saying, you know what? We can learn from each other. Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth, I really enjoyed this talk, and I think it's not going to be the last.
I hope not. You're a great person, and you're doing a great work in the nation. Keep it up.
Thank you very much.